call the meeting to order. Kathy's not going to.
Kathy's not here.
Okay.
And
Apologize for being late again on the record.
I would ask that council approve the agenda for the June 4th special council meeting with the addition of the following items. Business arising from minutes. Item 2.2, Christine Walker, Director of Community Recreation Services, regarding the Bowen Island Community Center Implementation Committee Terms of Reference dated June 1st, and an on-table item letter from Ian Henley regarding community grants, CRC, reality, and consequences.
So moved. Second.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. So are we starting with?
Yes, so as you'll recall, this is a leftover conversation from last Monday, and a decision was made to go through the items, the applicants one by one, and I think the only decision that was reached was the Tiernanog Theatre Society was decided to receive $10,000 as a community grant. The remaining applicants have not been discussed or decided. So I'm not sure if you wanted to take it from there and decide the approach.
I think the way we left it was that we were going to go through the grants and spring grants in order the way that they were presented. So shall we start with number one, which is the Arts Council? Council, anything to say on that, or is that the way to proceed, or? Yes?
So I would move that the recommendation for the Bowen Island Arts Council be $55,000.
Second?
Yes, second.
Any discussion? Tim?
No, I don't know what's, I've been thinking about this for a week, and I still don't know how to resolve any of this. As I said last week, I think starting with the highest ones and working down maybe the reverse of what we should be doing. But we're making the largest decisions first, which is going to have a big impact on people at the bottom of the heap here. So I'm not sure we're going about it the right way. That said, like I said, I'm just very...
Sorry, go ahead.
Tim brings up an excellent point, and my recommendation would be that we move the Arts Council till later on in the discussion.
Okay.
Just because it impacts the entire budget so much.
Karen, one of the things was that we had a list of what was granted last year.
Right. Page 203, E, C, D, and E. No, C, D, E, and F is a legal sideways landscape spreadsheet, and it shows what has been awarded since 2006, and also the permissive tax exemption that the organization receives if they receive one.
So shall we start then down at the bottom with the Bowen Island Football Club? Is that how you want to do it?
203.
Well, I'm kind of contrary to the idea that if we decide on the big ones first, then we know how much we've got left for the small ones. And the grants and spring grants and aid, I'm not happy with the recommendation, because for some of them to give them part of it isn't going to help. And if we do the big ones first, we know
much money.
How much money is left for the smaller ones?
Although there, it's a complicated decision because we have several organizations that provide more on-the-ground service than some of the other organizations, and in terms of value to the community and so on. And that's a matrix that I've decided, so I've got my own preferences. But $1,000 to some organizations, like Turnagaw as an example, can make a much more significant difference than, dare I say, the Arts Council. So without, I don't want to prejudice anybody's decision at this point, so I won't mention any organizations other than what I've said, but my preference would be to deal with some of the smaller ones first. And maybe we do what's been done in previous years, and that is we look at all of them and start juggling around figures like we do with a budget, and then come to a decision, although I'm loath to go that route, but we could go that way.
Well, I'd really like to start off on a completely fresh foot.
Sure, yeah,
rather than go last year and the year before sort of thing. But this is sort of, we're almost talking about entitlements here, and it's not entitlements, it's sort of money that we're taking out of the coffers of the municipality, and we're adding to the life of the island, and we're thinking about people, which is a change in my submission. And I mean, I'd rather put money into these community grants and the grants and aid, because I think it adds to the community life. And that's what we have to think about in the council, as opposed to, does it hurt the group that we may be cutting down? We have to think about everybody as a whole. So I'm really, whatever people think about how to do this, whether you take the large ones first or the
Okay, I'll
smaller
go
ones
along with
first.
starting with the small ones first.
Okay, the smaller ones first. Okay.
Before we start it all, I would think we should have a discussion about the process. And I found it personally very painful. I haven't paid attention in the past to how grants are allocated and so on. And for the first time I had to immerse myself. I found it painful, very painful, because there is no rule book. So we as a jury, we should award money to, they are all worthwhile recipient, but what are the criteria by which we should judge or could judge the deservability? Who is deserving how much? There is no measuring stick, there is no criteria, clearly. It's just a very subjective opinion.
Arbitrary.
And I would say, and if you grant money too often, it becomes just like an addiction. People expect it, without really reflecting if the public gets value in return and how much. So I would strongly suggest, once we go through that, and hopefully we will finish it for today, to see that as the end of one process, and from here on we start differently.
And we'll have a year, or at least 6 months to
Yes, and we have to establish criteria by which to judge. And certainly I get kind of confused when I have to spend hours to compare financial statements, even by the same community, by the same organization. They just change numbers, that's okay, but the terminology changes. So I cannot compare apples with apples.
Mm-hmm.
If I would do that to my lenders, they would audit us immediately, because it's, well, you know how it really changed the terminology of your expenses and your income. So unless there are references, why has it been changed? So let's see, we will get through this today, I hope, and we hope, or I hope we will not cause too much of disappointment. But I would say from here on, this has to
New
come
process.
Just
Sorry, here.
I think Andrew.
Yeah, just a quick word. What Wolfgang is saying, completely agree. The same statement is issued year after year after year whenever the grants. We come to this watershed moment in the grant giving process, and somebody speaks up and says, you know, we don't have a matrix to figure out to assign value to different criteria. We got to do it, and it's never done. So hopefully we'll come through.
Yeah, sort of on the heels of that comment, Casey, Alice, and Andrew and I participated in Joyce Ganong's grant writing workshop. And afterwards, I spoke to Joyce to essentially reiterate all the frustrations you're hearing at the table as to how the decision process is made and how do you balance everything else. And she has offered to conduct sort of to establish a matrix like that. In past years, I know the Community Foundation was asked to do the evaluations, and of course, that's not the role of the Community Foundation, but certainly someone with the experience of Joyce may be able to assist us in establishing some sort of policy that we can work for next year without the rigors of the present situation.
I think certainly addressing that, this is a bit of a bizarre process to begin with. I've never taken part in a process where people come and ask for money and so forth, and then we have it in an open forum so that everybody is watching, everybody's there, and there is nothing else like it. If you go and want to borrow money, or if you make an application from a foundation, you have no idea what's going to happen, because basically there are rules and there's guidelines, and then the decision is made by the foundation that has the money. And I think for starters, that's one of the things that needs to be done in this process. As part of the tightening up aspect of it, the actual decision making itself should be done in a closed room.
As it is with
I think it makes it easier all around. It certainly makes it easier on the decision makers, being ourselves, the council, but for the audience who are sitting around watching their potential endeavors go up or down or sideways or whatever is not a very good thing. So that's just my comment. In this regard, I think Karen's done a good job in asking all of us to put forward our own positions on each of the applicants. So the biases are all over the map around the council table, and then you've averaged them out, and you come out with what is an evening of it. Now I think all we have to do is just sit down and basically fine tune that and say, okay, agreed, not agreed.
Okay, so that actually brings us back to the resolution, which is on the table, which is for the Arts Council. Sorry, Karen.
I just want to remind that there is 2 policies governing how these are awarded, and I did summarize kind of the criteria on page 18 of the report, 17 and 18. So there is criteria already. I think the challenge is that it's not in a nice matrix format.
And when we tried to put it in a matrix format, it didn't help.
Exactly. I think the challenge is it's hard, and it's in a public forum, and all of the organizations meet the criteria, but it's difficult for the reasons you've stated. So there is criteria. The only other thought I have is I was just at the finance officers conference, and I kind of took that as my mandate while I was there, is to ask other communities how they do this process and what amounts they're giving out. And they were quite shocked at the amount that we're giving out. I think most of them are just dealing with smaller grants and aid rather than community grants. And so they were dealing with how do we divide up $10,000, and they would give, you know, 1,700 to this group, or 500 to that group, or 200 to that group. So they weren't dealing with the size of the dollars. And that was the one thing I learned from that. And they said it is hard. There is criteria, but everybody meets the criteria, so what do you do?
Did you ask them how they decided how big the pot was? Is it so much ahead for the population? I mean, I know that's.
Most of them are really very small, like under 10,000. I didn't ask them how they, I think it's historical. I mean, I have asked that before. Last year I did some inquiring into the size of the pot, but,
And some of them have service agreements with some of the organizations rather than a grant, so. how
Yes.
much, yeah.
but clearly every municipality, unless you're a growth municipality, has been struggling with declining or revenue staying stagnant, but costs go up. So how do you deal with that?
So we're back to, do we deal with the resolution ahead?
It's a step moving forward.
Yeah, let's, I agree, because we can be discussing this ad infinitum.
So we've moved it.
There's a mover and a seconder for the Arts Council grant. The request is $58,000, the recommendation is $55,000. Sorry, Tim.
I would suggest we make it the 2010 level of 47,000, and then after we've gone through the process, if we want to top that up, we can, but it then allows us a little bit of flexibility for the rest of the grants.
Sorry, the 2011 was 58,000.
2010.
Oh, sorry, 2010.
Can I have a clarification on that?
Yeah.
The 2010 grant was actually 54.9 because it was 47 plus 7,200. We had two, historically the Arts Council has gotten 7,200 since pre-incorporation because we tried to get them some money somehow. And it was always 7,200. How much was in the grant pot was the difference between the value of the rent used by the recreation department versus the 7,200. So basically the 47 and 72 is 54.9. So that's sort of the logic of the 55.
Essentially, we're getting $100 more.
And then there were some huge increases to get, up to the 47 going back, so.
Okay. That answers
We'll
that.
vote, I guess.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to say on this? Can I ask for the vote? All those in favor of 55,000? Against? Tim? Thank you.